This is my weekly live stream called 4D Trinity. It is here that we bridge fourth dimensional consciousness. That is the consciousness that is ever present in your heart. It is the wisdom of your heart. It is the truth of your heart. It is the knowing of your intuition that is always connected to source, to love, to truth. And it is here that we bridge, that we consciously create a way and connect with that truth, with that 4D version of ourselves and of the collective, through creating a union between the mind, the body, and the emotions with spirit. It is here that we teach and we learn that our spirit and our soul is unfuckable with, meaning that no matter what the stories are spiritually over time and space that say that someone can take your spirit, can mess with your soul, can fractalize it, or whatever all these things are, that there's a different story that we're sharing here now. And the story is that you are always whole, you are always complete, and you are always connected to source, no matter what the 3D circumstances may invite you to explore otherwise. And it's really important that we maintain a rooting and a grounding with this aspect of truth, because this is what gives us the levity of 4D consciousness. Let's just have a little review here before we get into the tension of things. So it is here that we teach and that we learn that the 3D is of the world. The 3D is the matrix system that we think about in movies, that we think about in these conversations about exit the matrix, entering the matrix, exiting the matrix. And really what I like to do here is teach us, because I've learned it myself, how to master the matrix. And you see, in mastering the matrix and learning how to master this 4D aspect of self, we come into aligning with mastery over the 3D. So what in turn we are doing is we are mastering the matrix with 4D consciousness. We are learning who we are as our higher selves. We are learning how to embody that boldly and courageously. And what is that? Your higher self is you, the truth in your heart. Oh, I'm guided to open up the crystal ball here. It is you being in your full power and your full authority, right? Unabashedly. Yet it is that version of you that is intimately connected to your truth, to your source, to your God, to love, to whatever name you would give that energy, that allows you to be truly empowered in the truth of you. So that's what we do here. We talk on metaphysics, we talk on spirituality. Everything that I share here, I pray and I affirm, truly serves your path of spiritual growth and spiritual sovereignty. I'm here every week at Thursday, 11 a.m. California time, that's Pacific Standard Time. And this show also goes live on Instagram. So if you're not always on YouTube, and I thank you all of the new subscribers here at YouTube, you can follow me on Instagram as well. I love both of these platforms. So you can watch this weekly show live on either. I do want to let you know that I have a monthly love letter. If you are interested in the information I share here and you would like to stay in touch, I send out a monthly love letter to all of the subscribers at my website. My website link is at the main page, at my Instagram main page, and it's also down below in the Show More box on YouTube. Sign up there. It's the first page you'll see. And I just sent out our June 2019 love letter, so I will make sure you receive that if you sign up here. So thank you for all of your support, all of the new followers on Insta, and all of the new subscribers at YouTube. I will be in Europe this fall facilitating presentations about the work that I do on the grid matrix and 4D consciousness. So if you're interested in that, keep in touch. Let me know if you have a community that you think would be interested. Let me know. Let's start a conversation. I will also be facilitating a mini Reiki retreat, a weekend immersion in Dublin, Ireland as well. So thank you for saying hi on YouTube. Bhavan. Well, hello, and thank you for saying hi. So let's go ahead and start to think about this, start to get into this. And I just want to check over here. Okay, we are good. Tension. Let's first think about this word tension. It's the state of being stretched tight. And we think about this in the 3D realm. The 3D is the world. The 4D, just to clarify, is heaven on earth, is being in the world while not being of it. The world contains a lot of stories. We've received a lot of stories about who we are as a man, as a woman, culturally, through our heritage, perhaps traditions, family, cultures, values, stories being passed on about sex and sexuality, about identity, about finances, about your health, about everything. We've been told stories from our families about who we are. We're told continual stories about who we are through media, through the news if you watch it, and through every post that perhaps we scroll or every video that we watch on YouTube. And as we mature in our spirituality, we come to garner the ability to discern what is the belief system, or what from this video, or what from this teaching, or what from this news break that I'm watching is information that I would choose to entertain, is information that I would choose to agree with, and then hold in the bank of my mind, and so connect with the greater mind to that information. So we are constantly given these opportunities on a day-to-day basis. As you scroll through your Instagram, there's posts that you like, those posts that you just scroll through, and maybe it doesn't mean that you don't like it, you don't feel to double tap. There's varying degrees of how we double tap, or we comment, or we just keep walking, right? We just keep going by. And so in the same way with life, we're given those opportunities, as we've said, to either connect with or not with these stories, with the information offered to us. And so within this idea of tension being, let's just consider this aspect of the world, this aspect of the 3D and all the stories we've been told about ourselves and this world, and what stories create that state of being stretched tight, create that tension that is rooted in mental or emotional strain. You know, there's all of sorts of examples that we can think of, and even just one being, let's say there's someone who is born a child, a young boy, and he has a deep entrepreneurial spirit, right, as a youth. Yet he's brought up with parents who teach him that life is hard and you're never going to get anywhere, and you need to have a college education in order to even be considered. And maybe they're poor, and maybe he can't afford a college education. And so there's a tension there, because inside this person, this boy, as he grows up and becomes a man, he knows there's the spirit in him to be an entrepreneur. He has creative ideas. He has that business side to him. Yet there's a tension over here from the family with the stories, with all the stories told to him about how tough it is and how that is not necessarily going to be the right path for him, and that he should be preparing for certain aspects, certain negativities, certain limitations, right? And so he can grow up with that tension. He can take all those stories on and believe those stories, and they will create a certain tension within him because he loves his mother and his father. Of course, I'm making this story up, right? But we can get this idea that this is us. This is how every fractal aspect of us is generated and held and connected to the next aspect. And so until this man now, as he becomes spiritually evolved, until he realizes what stories he wants to take on and believe and what serve him, and what doesn't. He will continue to be in that certain tension of opposites, of him having one feeling and sense about his life and his abilities, but also how that interfaces with the other aspects of everything he's been told about himself in his life. And where they're not in agreement, he gets to use his mindfulness and his ability to tap his truth and his heart and trust it, to make decisions, to be decisive, to change his mind about things, to choose to see things in a different way. So, with this said, we think about this tension in a very 3D way of being the state of being stretched tight mentally or emotionally, experiencing strain. And also we think about this tension as there being some sort of an applied force to something or someone. At the same time, there's certain tensions that we experience in life that serve our growth, that serve our ability to become stronger, right? Whether it is the tension of holding your tongue in certain situations and choosing to take the high road, choosing to adapt to remaining silent. If you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. Or in working your tongue, the tool of the tongue, to speak in a higher place. And if you're used to constantly maybe projecting on a negative level, there's a tension within you as you learn how to train yourself and turn that corner until it is a natural aspect that you are then speaking from that place, from a different place, perhaps of positivity versus negativity. As you learn that new learning curve, there's a certain tension there, right? And you can laugh at it and you can say, oh man, I really want to curse. And maybe you will, but then you'll redo it and you'll re-speak in a different way. So the aspects here that we're thinking about, again, are these stories, because there is a different tension that as we allow ourselves to align and come into a different realm of truth, of healing our lives, which is really enlightenment. As we heal our lives, we lighten. We lighten from the stories, from the pain, from all the things that have kept us bound in a certain tension, and in the tension of being in the past versus relaxing into the now. We've gotten used to that. And we think about being puppets on a string. We think about these experiences that we've had in the past that mark us, mark our timelines, that where we've been hurt, where we require healing, where we are seeking a new experience of life. We understand that there is that certain tension there, that those pains from the past that have not been resolved and completed and healed, as we walk forward in life, or even attempt to relax in the now, to the degree that those aspects have been healed, have been looked at, have been contemplated, have been gone through and felt all those experiences so that they could have their completion, is the level that 3D tension then is allowed to shapeshift and reorganize itself into a certain 4D tension. So there's a 4D tension by which one is invited to be carried, by which one is invited to trust their heart, to trust in God and source and love, in that power, whatever name you give it, that is you, but that is also beyond you, that perhaps sees into the realms of your being that you don't always have access to, that knows what is for your highest good. Thank you for saying hi and for hopping on Instagram and on YouTube. I'm so very grateful. Thank you so much for your support. So we're talking about this 3D tension and this 4D tension, and how the 3D tension is the subscription that we've bought into of all the stories that we've been given about ourselves and about life and about the world. And as we begin to unravel and heal those aspects, we are then freed to a different level of tension, into a different level of initiation, because we may not realize it, but carrying all those stories and all that gravity of the grids, of the strings of things, the energy threads of things, as the stories that we're given, as the pain of our past that is unresolved. We walk with that, and again, that creates a certain tension in the world, because we can't relax if we are unhealed, right? Very briefly, You might have heard this before, but in my book, The Reiki Apprentice, which is really an autobiography of my life, it's available on Amazon, on Kindle, and paperback. But there were certain experiences that are marked out in that story that I walked with, for my entire life until my early 40s, were those painful experiences of my past as a child were created the filters through which I saw everything in my life. And so I would continually recast and project the past into my present. And so feed it that information into the hologram, and so be refed exactly what I was putting in. And so the perpetuation of this tension, and feeling like a victim, and like I can't get out. And like, I hate this life. And like, what is all this about? And who am I? And, all this stuff. And it does serve. It does serve, because if we, with sincerity, really go in that path and ask the right questions and start to explore healing our lives, then those old tensions come undone. And then what happens is we're in the space in between where we get to know who we are without those stories. And then there's like this divine breath of God, if you will, divine breath of love, of a different frequency, of a different altitude, that matches your vibrational frequency now that you have healed, or at least that you are en route to healing these aspects of your life. And so the next initiation is that 4D tension, is that heaven on earth tension, is like, how much can you allow yourself to be happy? And I know it sounds ridiculous, but if you've had a lot of depression or a lot of anger and you're used to being triggered and you know it, and you're working out of those projections and those reactions, then you know very well it's work. It is a lot of work, right? To undo those old tensions and then to learn how to release into a new tension, which is to be supported, which is to be carried, which is to be served, which is to be lifted, which is to be in the world and not of it. And that's a whole different game of life that we get to play. So again, 3D tension is specific, where there is mental and emotional strain that is unresolved, where there are just the unconscious words that we speak with that create that tension too. The God phone is calling. Blessings, God. It's definitely God. It's always you. It's only you when you call on this phone. God says hi, everyone. Blessings. I know we're talking about tension today. Yes, I'm definitely going to get into the tense ion. You want me to do it now? And then you want to read? Yeah. From Renate Crane's book on Hildegard of Bingen. Yeah, she's what a prophet, huh? The name of this book, God wants me to say the name of this book, Prophet of the Cosmic Christ. Because remember, this is what we're talking about. I'm sorry, I'm talking to them and I'm talking to you at the same time. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about 4D being you and I realizing the Christ consciousness that is within us. And that is the first step of just realizing that it's already here. And then creating the correct conditions to listen, to relax into it, to trust it. Yeah, I mean, if I may say so myself, Christ is quite a badass God. God's laughing. Yeah. And we each have that in within us, right? Under grace. God is saying, under grace. Thank you, God. Yes, I will. I'll get on with it. Okay, blessings. Namaste. God says namaste. Thank you, dear God. So, yes, there's this aspect of really turning a corner and learning where it is that we, through our own tongue, are creating tension in our life. For example, this is an old story. You might have heard me say it before. There's a woman that I know, and she's learning. She's on her learning curve, but she would always, like every single time, she constantly had digestive issues, and every time she would be in front of a plate of food, there was like something wrong with it or something, or how do I know that the guy washed his hands, or Like, even if it was this beautifully prepared thing and you're at the fanciest restaurant, or even if she made it herself, like, it doesn't matter. There was always some negative something, or I bet you this is going to give me gas, or ooh, this thing looks weird, or does that smell okay to you? Or just, there was always something. And every time, don't you know it, that she ate, there was always like all sorts of stuff going on in the digestion. And I'm just sitting there going like, well, you're putting that energy into that food, into your mind, you're creating that tension. And then so your body's exhibits that tension in trying its best to digest from a tension place, if you know what I mean. And we can do that to ourselves all the time. Or we can create the correct conditions to create the mind of God, the voice of God level of tension, which is simply speaking as your higher self, which is simply taking the high road, which is simply remaining silent versus speaking, especially if you don't have anything that's going to add in a positive way to a situation. And so God was requesting that we read a little passage from this book, and we will here shortly. God was also wanting to just illuminate this metaphysical, multidimensional aspect of this. And if there are any scientists out there, any people with that bent of a mind, email me later or DM me later, or all my information is all of my main pages in the show more box here. But there's this theory, right, that think about the word tension, Tension. So we're going to break up the word. We think about 10, and we think about the 1 and the 0. Numerologically, we think about 10 as being the number of completion. It's a big deal to come to completion with things. There's a lot of tension in our lives, from aspects, from relationships, from old bosses, from whatever it might be, family members and things in areas where we have not completed, where we have not had closure, even on our own level, where we have not forgiven, where we are withholding love. That creates a certain tension that resides in the mind and the emotions in the body. And again, where it is not aligned, where it is not given the right of way for love to flow, we know that this creates further stress and tension in the body. And so the point is that 1 and 0 of the 10, the teaching is that we become one. We realize that there is no separation. We get to that point in our enlightenment that we realize that we're all just one actually big organism. I was watching a thing with Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton last night, and you know, they're just saying like this whole world is a petri dish, and we are the cells. You know, just the same way as you are a petri dish, and all of the trillions upon trillions of cells and atoms that make you up. You know, you are the petri dish. And the health and the state of this petri dish is governed by the activity of those cells, and those cells are listening. They're listening to everything we say. And they even hear the silent thoughts that we don't necessarily say outside, right, through our tongue, through our words. Within this, though, we realize we are one. We realize a certain level of unity consciousness that is very necessary. It is a first step. It is a step in the alignment with 4D consciousness, with that Christ consciousness. As we realize our oneness, that is the way through the 0 point. That is the way through the heart, the 0. So we think about the word tension, Ten, right? And then we're going to think about the number 10, the 1. We realize our oneness, which allows us then, through that conscious realization of oneness, we are then given like this free pass to move through the 0 point of thine heart. It is a sacred gateway that connects to the heart, that is the one heart that we all share. And within that one heart resides that unbendable, unfuckable with consciousness that is unabashedly rooted in the power of love, period. So we realize our oneness, automatically. It's like this Disneyland ride. We are like, hello, welcome. Like once you realize you're one, it's like there's this whole other world that is of a different level of tension, because now you are welcomed into this world that says like, hey, now you get to be in the world and not of it. You've realized your oneness. You've realized, and that has allowed you into this sacred gateway of the 0 point, where you realize you are not a body. You realize there's more to this life than just the stories or the pain of your past. And so you start to work with it. You start to learn modalities or heal yourself, and you realize and recognize this levity, your ability to levitate, to be free from the chains and the strings and the ties that have bound you in the past. And this then is our invitation, again, into the 4D tension, which is the letting go. It's the, oh shit, I gotta let go of control. Because you start to realize through your oneness and through that 0 point that there is a divine organizing power. We call it love, right? In my book, How to Manifest with the Law of Vibration, love is referred to as the quantum organizer. Love knows things about everything that we don't know. And as much as we know, there is a divine spontaneous wisdom that is God, that is love, that is light, that operates outside of the 3D continuum of time and space, as we've been taught to learn that that is who we are in this space. So we have the 10, the 1 and the 0, the tense, right? The S I like to think of as the hourglass, right? Or the figure 8, that we connect the dots. And really, I feel like, should I be drawing this for you? But it's an idea. Let me just do this for a moment, just so we can see. And I know someone had once said, I think I have to turn my camera around. I know on YouTube it comes up correctly, but I think on Insta it comes up backwards. So it may come up backwards, but we think about this word tension, right? And as I was saying, the 10, the 1 and the 0, and then with the S, what I do is I connect the dots and we make it into the infinity symbol. We make it into the hourglass, the Holy Grail hologram, that you are, that I am, that we are all together. And then what are we left with? We're left with ions. And what are ions but charged particles? And what are particles but atoms? And that's all we are. And that's all anything is. And we know that the scientists have looked deeply into these atoms, into who we are, into what we are, and they realize that there's actually more space than atoms. For as many of the trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of atoms that make us up, there's actually nothing there. And that's the greatest joke. Yet I believe that the space in between, that's the love, right? That's the foundation. That's the founding force. That's the ultimate fundamental plane and playing field through which we are all existing. Now, to the extent that we're aware of it or not is another thing. But the aspect that we're talking about, though, is that we realize our oneness. We go through the gateway of the 0. We start to embody this infinity, this out of time and spaceness, this holy grail. We become the holy grail to our selfness. And we recognize then this play of ions, this play of charged particles that we are. And I love this aspect. Again, if you are scientific at all, let me know what you think, or if this resonates, or if I'm totally off in a 3D way. But there's this feeling that atoms are completely neutral. They're just neutral. They're just chilling. And then we look at them, or we think about something, or we say something, and then all of a sudden the atoms get all excited and they start to stir up and begin to manifest and show us and reveal to us that which we place our word, we place our energy, our anger, our fear, our whatnot, right? And it begins to manifest for us in that way. And so those ions become charged. And here we go, 3D tension versus 4D tension. So with our thoughts, our words, our actions, our deeds, and our ability to go to the past as we're guided. I know it's not always time to heal your life. There's times where you need a break, or it's just not, the cycles aren't clicked yet. But when it's time, then we start to recognize, oh, there's a different level of tension here that I can access. There's a different level of tension. And one keeps me bound in the past, which we know is an illusion. We know that past and future, and even this idea of present, which we might even do a whole show on that. These are illusions. Now, granted, this is an illusion we all share, though, so it's very real, the past and the future. And even on my Insta, like my whole thing is swimming with the humpback whales, and I've seen myself post #future_self, so we can work within the illusion once we know it's an illusion. And really now I'm like minding it, and I'm saying, oh, let me just start putting also the #NowSelf. Let's take time away. So getting back to this idea, 3D tension, the strain, the tension of the past, of the bind, of the things that are not calibrated in alignment with you being your higher self. 4D tension is a different level of tension, but it is not the same tension that causes the stress and the strain and the grief and the confusion and whatever all that stuff of the 3D polarized dual binary system is. The 4D tension is like, okay, you've opened your heart this far. You've become one. You've recognized your unity consciousness. You are like a warrior dropping your shields. You are releasing your warrior. You are becoming the alchemist. You are stepping into the magician, the self-healer. You know how to be a warrior now. You can pick up those shields at any time, but the tension of 4D says, honey, this is a new level of tension where you don't walk with your shields anymore because that pain is of the past and you've healed it to such a degree that why do you need to carry all those heavy shields around? And you don't need to keep continuing those tension 3D thoughts that keep you bound and projecting those realities. And so having them, like subscribing to them, having them repeat and come on a weekly, monthly, daily basis. Right? There's a new tension. And it is us letting go of control. It is us surrendering to God, to source, to love, to light, to the truth in your heart, all the different things that you could choose for it to be, or all of the above, and really surrendering to it. And that's a level of tension that is the 1 and the 0, the holy grail hologram that you are. And that is you mastering your ions. And we did a show, God, it's probably almost a year ago, about the ions, something ions. Anyway, I'll come back on my YouTube and I will put a link. I'll come back and I'll put links later because it's pretty interesting. And I wonder how these theories match up. So let's keep going. So let's just review here for a moment. And I know I still need to read this little couple sentences from the book. So we think about 3D tension as gripping, right? Think about you or people that you know that just live in that state of just like tension. There's always like the car is getting repoed. There's always an illness. There's nothing ever works out. There's the behind in the rent. And I mean, granted, this happens. This is a very 3D thing that we all go through at various times. But we're learning how to master the matrix. We are learning how to master our minds and our mouths, our time and our space, so that we conduct a different reality for ourselves to have an experience by. But as we learn to do that, and until we're really mastering that, and it's evident in our peace of mind and in our life experience, we're on the learning curve. And so there's still gripping somehow. Yet what is the opposite of that gripping, of that level of tension? There's a different level of tension that says, I let go, I release. Right? You understand? That's a level of tension that is relinquishing control, that is trusting. And what is trust? Trust is always rooted in the heart. And the heart, again, is your 4D consciousness, your Christ consciousness, is your mystic gift of trust. All the things that have definitions, all the things that we can put a label on are great. There's good, there's beautiful things, there's weird, there's funky things that you're like, I don't even want to know what that thing is. I don't even want to see it. But then there's another paradigm that is the paradigm of the 0 point, that is outside of time and space. And that's where we're going with this 4D tension, where that is the spontaneous. That is where, that's all the juicy, good, out there, crazy cool stuff that you and God have not created yet. But that is just, I mean, what was Velcro before Velcro came? We were sewing buttons onto pants and dresses and shirts and stuff. And shoes had laces. And now you can buy shoes with Velcro. It's like someone in God, came up with that. And so anyway, that's a funny point. But I'm saying is that there's a whole other realm of experience that we may have when we loosen the moorings of the grip of the 3D tension, right? Because that's control. There's no flow, right? It's frozen. We freeze ourselves in the past. We freeze ourselves and replay those pains versus flow. 4D tension, flow. It's the tension of flow. And I know this might sound ridiculous. I've worked with many people over the years, and there is a certain level of when you work with someone who is used to being in a high stress capacity, and they're like high level corporate people. I used to go and I used to do chair yoga classes at big high rise corporate companies in New York back in the day. And I remember they'd be all tense. They'd be like, okay, well, how long is the session going to be? Because I got to get to a meeting, and blah, 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 and all this stuff. I'd be like, whoa, you really need some yoga, right? That was me back in the day. And they'd be like, all we have is 15 or 20 minutes. And I'd be like, that's all we need. And within that time, we were lion facing. We had the ties off, the shoes off, and they got what they needed from it. But there was a certain tension there. And now I forget what I was even telling you that story about. Okay, let's keep going. Oh, there was an invitation to release that tension for a new tension. So it's like that, right? When we go for healing, when we go for a yoga, when we pray, when we do anything, it is our complete surrender and relinquishing of that which was, so that something new can spontaneously manifest in the now. And that's that God zone. That's that 4D zone of the stuff that hasn't been invented yet, of the stuff that hasn't happened yet in your life, of the stuff, and there's no limit, you see. We tend to limit life and the world and the universe by what has happened in the past. And we're moving out of that tension collectively together, my friends. And we're understanding a new tension that is all good divine blessings can come to pass in the most high way in service to the highest good of all. What is that about? Well, we're learning together. So let's keep going, right? When we're in tension, we tend to hold our breath, which again is that holding versus inhale, exhale, a relaxed body. When we're having tension, there might be jaw, the shoulders are tight. There might be suppression. We think about tension. We think about the suppression of anger. We think about the suppression of rage. There may be physical ailments, ulcers, rashes. Who knows, right? There could be all sorts of things connected to holding tension in our bodies. And we know this, right? Tension, headache. I know a lot of people, I'll put this in a bubble of light because we don't need to keep perpetuating this belief. Yet I know a lot of people under a lot of stress. Oh, that's what I was going to say about the corporate thing. Thank you, higher self. I'll come back to that here shortly. But I know a lot of people living under high stress, and the stress is created in their own mind, or they're living in a life situation that they don't want to be in, yet they somehow feel that they need to be there for some reason or the other. And so they play the victim. They're stressed out, they're tense, they don't have sex with their partner anymore. They don't want to be there. They've moved on. Yet they make themselves abide there for the kids or for the whatever. They don't want to feel guilty. I don't know, whatever all the reasons are that we do what we do. And so that's a certain level of tension, causes stress. So cut to my chair yogis in New York from back in the day. The point that I wanted to make is when you have people that are really high rollers and they're used to high stress activity, right? That's a level of functioning that's in a way, bubble of light, kind of cool to be able to be like, boom, 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 boom. Yet to be able to turn that off and release the boom is very important. And so what I learned working with these high level people is that you don't just turn the light off right away. They are so wound up in a stress zone, but that's their norm. And we're not judging it, because I know there's a time and place for everything, and there's skills in being able to manage a lot of things on that level. Yet we couldn't just go from high stress 10 to 0 right away. There was a slow unraveling, because the irony is that there is a certain added stress, added tension that seems to occur for high stress people when they're invited to just relax. It's they're like, are you fucking joking me? I can't just relax. Do you know how many things I got to do and how many phone calls I got to emails, and blah, 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 and all the mind and all this stuff. So there's a slowing down. There's a gradation period to get to that space of relaxation, different practices. So I'm offering you that story so that we're not hard on ourselves, that we can be gentle on ourselves as we explore this, because it may not be a corporate high level job that your intention, maybe you're taking care of two parents that are sick, and you're working a full-time job, and you're trying to go to school, and you're trying to pay the rent. There's all sorts of different ways that like the 3D world can be like, I got some tension going on here. And so we do our best to navigate it, to manage that so that the tensions are appropriately aligned, that it doesn't go in one way or the other, like a tipping of the scales. And eventually we learn to let that scale, we learn to adjust and entertain and align with those tensions that are rooted in God, rooted in love, rooted in peace, rooted in inviting us to release control, so that we can abide in a different level of tension, and in that tension that is to be carried, that is to relax, that is not to have all the answers. And I understand if you're in a high level job and situation like that, your job is to have answers, but there's a balance, right? There's a balance. So where in life for you is the balance off? Where is there more tension in your life? And right away, you can just think, you'll see a face, you'll be like, oh, that relationship, that person, that situation, or at a certain job, or whatever it might be, and that's where the call for the healing, a call for the recalibrating, even of how you see things. Sometimes it's just how we see things that just shape shifts, dematerializes the situation as we were once projecting, perceiving it, and allows it to be like hitting the refresh button. It allows it to be recalibrated. So we're like, oh, I'm now seeing that different. Now that I see that different, that person doesn't bug me in the same way. I see that they're just operating from a place that they know, and I don't have to take it personally. When we start to just rethink things in ourselves, then we begin to become aware of seeing things differently. And so carrying a different level of that tension with us, transitioning into that 4D tension. So again, we're talking about, anger, rage, all the passive things that could be suppressed, and that's a part of the 3D tension. Withholding love. This is a big one. Withholding love from ourselves is massive. Withholding love from others is huge. Withholding love. Punishing ourselves, punishing others, because they hurt us. And we're not going to forgive, or we're going to punish by not loving, and you don't even have to judge or say anything negative or think negative thoughts about the person, place, or the thing, or the event, or whatever. But just by you simply withholding love is anchoring you in the 3D versus giving you levity of the 4D level of your consciousness. And so rooting you in to have, again, that experience be the way that you're seeing everyone. One person fucks you over, one person hurts you, one person does you wrong, whether it's in love, whether it's in business, whether it's someone that messed you up when you were a kid. If you have not stepped up and become that warrior for that period, to go into the fire of self, to go into your fears, to go into why you're hurt, and to ask them on a higher level, why did you hurt me? Or what's going on here? To explore and to uncover, to go through into the fire, to allow that which is untrue to be just burned off, so that the truth of you remains in your clarity and your light. When we don't do that, and when we don't do that over and over and over and over and over again, we know that this feeds the tar body. The tar body is the toxic twin and double of the light body. And the work that we do here together is we learn how to feed the light body and starve the tar body. Again, when we feed the light body, we're nourishing our 4D self. We're nourishing our ability to simply relax in that frequency of, I don't know, I trust. And that can be a very tense place for people to be. And it's okay. It's not like someone's more spiritual or like better or whatever, if they're, better at this and not at that. It's all learning curves. And where there might be one area in life where you're like, man, I'm cool with letting that be. But then when it comes to money, you're like, oh no. There could be different areas where you're like, oh, I got to work on that, or I can look at that and see where I can see where I can let go and stop withholding love. Because we know that withholding love, where we are withholding love, is creating tension. And where we are withholding love is a call for a healing. And where we are withholding love is a call for forgiveness, to learn that we can cultivate greater unconditional love for ourselves, and then also to extend it, to let it go too. Not just to be like, I found this love and I'm gonna keep it all to myself. Let go. Let go. We go from biting our tongues, right? When we live in that tension, that 3D. And I know there's places and times, you know, and this is where we're having this experience of being in these bodies on this planet. So there's a different moment for each aspect. But the aspect of biting one's tongue, right? Of not speaking up. You know, there's a certain level of tension. My whole life, I only learned how to use this throat chakra, you know, in the later part of my lives. The earlier part of my life, I was a singer. So there was always some aspect of it, which I was okay. I had no tension in singing back in the day, although I did have negative, you know, baubles that would float with me that I would have to cut away so I could get up there and sing my song on stage. Yet then, as I grew, I realized I was like, oh my God, okay, so I have less tension when I need to like sing a song. I have the other tension that's just there about whatever self-doubt, self-judgment, the normal bubble of light, 3D stuff. But when it came to standing up for my truth and speaking with integrity and respect for myself or my body, that's where I was like, you know, where I had a huge block and a lot of fear because of past stuff that happened as a youth, et cetera, et cetera. So we all have these aspects, but learning how to not bite our tongues, how to not use the double tongue of speaking in riddles that are, you know, like there are characters in the world right now that do this, that are just, it's just, there's nothing rooted and anchored and aligned in any aspect of a truth. And when it comes to us, we get to tell the truth and we learn how to say it. As I learned how to open my throat chakra, yeah, there were things where I was like, oh, I put my foot in my mouth. Because it was just, it got way too open too quick. And I was like, oh, I get to learn how to manage this mindfully, so that we learn to speak with grace. We learn to speak in tongues of light and of love, right? But it's through the initiation, because we're either speaking in tongues that are creating more 3D tension, more things to be anchored and feel that the world is real and limited and we're bound and this sucks and this is hard and there's no way out. Versus all you have to do, again, is to think about it different, to see it get different, to choose again differently. And you create a portal within your heart by which the divine is shown unto you. But without your first taking that step in that direction and allowing it to be, then it doesn't have a means to get in. And sometimes it tries to get in even amongst the tension of our resistance. And depending to the degree that we are able to hear the knock, to turn to that, and to open the door to it, right? That's a whole other level of our practice. So, seeing everyone as you. Again, coming back to this idea that we're all just one big petri dish here, and we are all these individual cells. These bodies are all these individual cells of this greater collective here on this planet. Old tensions, 3D tensions, include judgment, things based on fear, you know, there's cool tensions too, though, that I want to talk about. And just briefly, right? We think about where's this like this place in between the 3D and the 4D, especially where there's an awareness and a mindfulness. And I do want to do a little meditation with you here shortly. And I still need to read this. So, but just briefly, sexual tension. Sexual tension. In the right context, in the right conditions. This is a fun play, right? Of the elevated aspect of the awareness of the 3D push-pull, submerged in that divine love and light and grace of the 4D letting go, and of that creating that sacred space for the spontaneous, the divine, the delicious to occur in your intimate connections. And then also another one I love is the creative tension. You know, I'm a writer, I'm an author, and there's plenty of spaces between when I get the idea and it's here and it's clear. Look out, because we're typing and we're typing, and we're taking notes and we're doing all sorts of, you know, it's on. But when it's not on, there's this pacing back and forth, and this like, okay, got to get, you know, got to get this information, meditating on it, taking notes, and like, you know, formulate. And there's a certain tension you know. And perhaps as an artist, if you resonate with that, then it's like you're like into, it's a part of the thing of being an artist, you know. And sometimes we cry. I know I'm an emotional artist too. You know, there's things that we go through, these swings that we go through, and there's that level of tension that it's like, oh, this, I just haven't got that idea just clear yet. And then boom, the watershed breaks and it's like, whoa, here we go. I'm ready to put this down and to start getting this idea formulated, shifts into a different tension. So again, we learn to master the matrix. So we're not saying like you can't live in 3D tension. It's like you're just like so unenlightened if you're like in 3D tension all the time. No, we're physical bodies. We're 3D beings, but we're not really bodies. We're not really bodies at all. See, we're taught that, but we are spirit. We are love. That's what I teach. That's what I share. That's what I know of myself. And I invite you to be in consideration of whatever resonates with you, whatever creates the best kind of tension in you. The message today is learning to master the container of self that you are, so that your words, your thoughts, your deeds, and wherever you know there's tension, where you gotta clean up, you get to heal that stuff now. It's about time. It's been what, 2 years, 20 years, 30, 40, 50 years. Time to forgive, to complete, to turn that corner, you know, so that we can be uplifted into that 4D tension. But we learn how to master the tens, master the ions. Master your ions, right? Through what you entertain, through how you manage your interior spiritual being. So the God phone rang earlier, and I know we've been chatting away here. And there's a little piece that we're guided to read today, and then we're going to go into a little meditation. So again, this is a book by Renata Descartes, and I pray I'm saying her name. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. Renate Crane. Pardon my French. And she speaks of tension. We could actually do a whole show on her as I educate myself more on her. But she's a prophet who would channel Christ consciousness, teachings and writings and music and art, and just was a phenomenal being of her time. She was a prophet and a sage and a master. So I'm just going to read, and this is not oh, how funny. I don't think this is the page that I was going to read. Let's see. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Here we go. So, and you know, here at this channel, God is love. God is a verb. God is a feeling. It is an experience. It is a feeling realization of oneness, of that oneness. I'm not pushing any religion. I'm not religious, but I have had many experiences and encounters with love that are beyond this world, that have been profound and miraculous. And in the studies with A Course in Miracles and other realms that I am guided to, I know that for me, God is a verb. It is not anything but that. It is a feeling. It is an experience. It is the experience of unconditional love, unbound by the tension of the 3D matrix. So, Hildegard of Bingen. I'm just going to read, and then we're going to do a little meditation. Etc., etc., etc. Christ's love, etc., etc. They also reveal the universal story of which we are all part. The entire universe, the cosmos, manifests the mystery of this fiery, ever-living light of love that shines forth in and through matter, in and through human beings in their specific historical setting. God, as the mystery of love, is like the horizon that surrounds the human spirit, wooing it into creative tension between body and soul, mind and emotion, individual and community, heaven and earth. So there's these things where we think, well, how could we, I mean, doesn't it has to be heaven or it has to be earth? And it's like, no, this is what this 4D is all about. It's like, no, honey, we're learning to bridge the gap through us. And if you know, you've watched my other shows, your energy body is the bridge, your crystalline tube, your chakras, but that's for another time. So it's our willingness to live in the tension of these poles in the womb that nourishes and protects those discerning actions that will mirror the life-giving love that is God. Let's meditate for a minute. Take a moment, take a breath in and out. Closing your eyes, just get comfy. It's just going to be a very short one. Connect with your higher self by simply choosing it to be so. Feel you are now connected with your higher self. And for the highest good, we enter the quartz crystalline cave to do this work together. In connected with our higher self, we ask for divine guidance. Higher self, show us images, feelings, pictures, words of where we can heal or resolve tensions of the past that keep us bound to the past, that we may begin to explore a new level of tension of being carried by love. So where is it now, higher self, that we can release and relinquish 3D tensions that keep us anchored in the past? And just listen now. Notice what you're being shown, or what you're hearing, or maybe what you're seeing and hearing. And allow that blip to be enough. We'll say thank you to the higher self, your individual higher self that is connected to the collective higher self. We say thank you. We take another breath and we open our eyes and we come back in. So remember last week we were talking about in our little meditation, the importance of being able to pop in and pop out of those meditations. And while I love sitting in a long meditation, the ability to just go in and to really sincerely go in for that moment, that minute, that whatever it is, and then boom, come back out, right? It's a skill. I love it. So thank you for sharing that with me, and thank you for being here today. And I pray and I affirm that everything I share here on this show truly serves your path of spiritual growth and sovereignty. And thank you everyone for hopping on Insta. Oh my gosh, there's people. That guy Sam, what? Blessings. I'm going to be in Ireland this fall. I look forward to seeing you again. Breath Flow Thrive. Oh my God. Hello, sister and Diane. Thank you so much. And there's others here. I'm so grateful. Thank you, Bhavan, for being here on YouTube. Again, I'm Tuesday May Thomas. This is my weekly live stream 4D Trinity. Next week, we are doing my live Ask Me Anything. How can I help? Where I channel your higher self and offer divine messages, always rooted in spirit, always rooted in love, to help your divine path. So thank you again. I pray and I affirm that this serves you and that your higher self has given you what you needed, that little morsel for today, to bless you along your perfect path. You can join my, what is it called? Subscribe to my website to receive my monthly love letter. I just sent one out for June. I will send you it along. Sign up if you'd like to keep in touch. All of my books are at my website and all my information is there. I'll be in Europe this beautiful, blessed end of summer and fall. So I look forward to keeping you informed and staying in touch. Namaste, everyone, with so much love. Thank you for being here. I'm so very grateful. Blessings and blessings and blessings.